Let's now write files in CSV format. For this example, so we can write our CSV format, we will use encoding CSV library. Because of that, we will import that library inside of our import section. Inside of our main function, we will create multidimensional slice of strings. Then we will create a new file with extension CSV so we can put our new data inside of that file. We will create a new variable w, which will be our new writer for our buffer. In this case, file variable will be our buffer. We access our CSV library and then called function new writer. Next, we will access our w variable and then we will specify new value for our comma attribute. Default value for this attribute is comma sign, but we can assign a new value, so in this case we will assign semicolon value as one specific character. Then we will create our for loop in which with function range we will iterate over our records, which means that we will iterate over our multi-dimensional slice. Next, inside of our for loop we want to access our w variable, and that variable will call write function. To that function we will pass each object inside of our multi-dimensional slice. So each object as a record variable will be assigned to our buffer. In our if statement we will check if there is any error for assigning one specific object to our buffer. When we assign all values, we will execute flush command from our w variable. Our flush command will transfer all our data from our buffer, which means from our RAM memory, to our disk. Now we can save our file and execute it. We can see new file inside of our directory with name data1 and extension CSV. Let's now open that file. We can see that we have all values from our multidimensional slice separated in each line. Also, we see that our character semicolon are separating values from our objects inside of each line. So in this case, that character will be our delimiter. So practically, CSV format is format of file in which we will write many different objects with different values, where each object will be described in one specific separated line, and values of these objects will be separated by specific value of our delimiter inside of each line. Let's now see how we can read from that file. For this example, we will open our data1 CSV file, which we created in previous example. We will create a new variable in which we will access our CSV package, and then we will call function new reader. To that function, we will pass our buffer from our file variable. Then we will specify two values. First value will be value for our attribute comment, which means that if line starts with this sign, our reader won't process that specific line. So that line, in this case, in our file, will be only description so we can understand the nature of our objects. Then we will specify new value to our comma attribute, which means that this character will be our delimiter, and this character will separate values of our objects on each line. Default value of this delimiter is also comma, but this time, because we wrote that delimiter as semicolon in previous example, now we must assign that character also for our reader. We will open our for infinity loop, and inside of that loop we will call our read function from our R variable, which in this case is our reader. Then we will check type of error variable in case we get any error. If that error is end of file, then we will break our for loop. We will write if statement, and in that if statement we will check type of our error. In this case, our parse error will be custom made error, which means that we can access specific attributes of that structure. We will also check if our error is error of field count. This means that some fields for specific object on specific line are missing, so we cannot read that specific line. In that case, we will execute our continue function, which means that we will start with next iteration inside of our for loop. In case where everything is fine and we don't have any errors, then we will print each line from our file. So in this case, when we called our read function, we created a new variable record. That record will be value of data type slice of string, and that slice will be slice of string values for our each object inside of our file. So now, when we execute our reader, we can see 3 different rows from our file, and we can see slice of strings, which describes our objects. Here, we must understand that our reader is only returned for us for each object slice of strings, which means that if we need some other data type, we must convert specific value inside of specific slice into another data type. In next example, let's see how we can do that and how we can create one slice of strings into one specific structure. For this example, we will create a new structure, user, with 3 attributes. We can see that our second and third attribute has data type integer. Inside of our main function, we will again open our file, and after that, we will define our CSV reader. We will create a new variable, list, and that list will have data type of slice user structures with pointers. We will again open our for loop like in previous example, and start of this loop will be the same like in previous example. But now, after we check in 2 ways type of our error, we must do converting from string to integer data type, so we can create our new user with pointer, and so we can put that new user to our list variable. From each line, we want to take index place 1 and 2 and convert that values of strings to integers. After we convert these 2 values, we can append new user with pointer to our list variable. As we can see, while we are creating our user with pointer, for first value, we will specify index place 0 from our record variable, and for second and third attribute, we will assign new values v1 and v2 as data type integers. Inside of our main function, we can print our list variable, so we can see that we have 3 new locations inside of that list, and we can specify value with pointer on specific index place, so we can see values of one specific object. So now we understood how we can operate with CSV files.